Hello, everyone.
Good evening, Professor Nigam. Good evening, Professor Patel. Hi, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you, and thank you for making the time to attend this webinar. My name is Apurva Gupta, and I am the Assistant Director at the Distance Education Department at NLSIU. I am very delighted that today I'm joined by my colleagues, Professor Dr. Nigam Nugihalli, who's the Registrar of the university. He's recently joined us. He has a DPhil from Oxford and cross-cultural international experience in both practicing and teaching law, as well as, researching on law. And I'm very delighted that he's with us today. He's made the time to interact with all of you. Welcome, Professor Nigam. We are also delighted to have Professor Bhavin Patel with us, who teaches the Introduction to Law and Legal Systems course, which is a common course for all the programs. He's also been working with the department for a long time and has been instrumental in helping us move to an online and hybrid structure. So before we open up for questions, I will just take the opportunity to briefly introduce you to our programs and some of the changes that we've made recently. So before I talk about the Distance Education Department, let me briefly tell you about the National Law School of India University. So this was the first national law school that was founded in India with the mission to pioneer legal education and to really take legal education to, to reform it, to research on it and take it to new heights. So with that mission, we have been a leader in the field for about 30 years. And our alumni and the work they have done in different fields, not just in law, is a testimony to that fact. And I'm sure most of you already know about it. A little bit about the Distance Education Department. We started about more than 2 decades ago, and we offer programs which are remote in nature and are accessible to students from the comfort of their homes. NLS as a public university, has a mission to engender diversity in the student body, and the Distance Education Department is one of the pillars in achieving this goal. So we welcome students from all disciplines, from all ages, and we try and work with them to enable an exchange in terms of teaching and learning, and to help them gain an understanding of law and their particular area of interest. So we offer hybrid programs which are self-paced, which means that you can access them from a place of your comfort at your own time, and you can design your own learning pathway. The curricula is contemporary in nature and taught by leading experts in the field, one of whom is present with us today, Professor Patel. And we have realized that most of our graduates, these programs help our graduates in their career advancement and gain leadership positions in their respective organizations. Some of them have gone on to become leaders in their field and really benefit from these programs beyond just the benefit of the knowledge that they get. I'm sure most of you who are on this webinar are aware of the programs that we offer, but this is a short recap that our flagship program is that of business laws. We offer a master's, and we also offer 7 postgraduate diplomas in child rights, consumer law and practice, cyber law and cyber forensics, environmental law, human rights law, intellectual property rights and law, medical law and ethics. All of these programs are remote and hybrid, and the PG diplomas are, you can complete them in about a year's time. The Masters of Business Laws at least takes 2 years for you to complete. So over the past year or so, we've introduced some new elements to our offerings of these programs, and I'm excited to share that this Year, we have notched that up a little more. So all our distance education students will have access to the learning management system anywhere, anytime. So you could be traveling, you could access it from your phone, from your tablets, from your computers, whatever is convenient to you. And this is a space where all the learning materials are consolidated and accessible to you, including the class recordings for you to revisit, or if you've missed a class, you can just access the recording and know what has been taught. This is also a space for you to interact with your peers. This year, we would be starting discussion forums so that you can engage with someone from across the country, or in a different country on a specific area of interest within a topic in the program. We've also increased our learning and teaching hours. Right now, you will mandatorily have 32 hours of teaching, apart from access to faculty during their office hours, so that you can discuss any doubts or queries or things that you want to ask them one-on-one. This year, we have also launched our alumni platform, which is available on the department's website. So anybody who graduates from the department will be a part of this network. We'll have an opportunity to network with alumni from across different years, across programs at NLS, and benefit from networking opportunities. This year, we will also facilitate 2 campus visits. These are optional, of course, but for those of you who want to visit the campus, meet the faculty, interact with your peers, be a part of some interesting symposia, this is an opportunity for you to do that. And last but not the least, you will also have access to library resources. So we have enabled remote access for distance education students. One of the ways in which we are able to deliver these programs to people from across the board is because of our course in Introduction to Law and Legal Systems, which introduces people with no law background to fundamental concepts of law, and help students approach and understand specific laws in different fields. Professor Bhavin Patel actually has reconceptualized this course and is teaching this, has taught it last year and is teaching it this year. So I will invite him now to share a little bit about the course and how it can be beneficial specifically to those who have not studied law until now, and to those who have studied it as well. Professor Patel.
Thank you, Apurva. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Good to see all of you here. I'm going to talk about 2 things that relate to the Introduction to Law and Legal Systems course that I think are very, very interesting. The first answers Apurva's question directly. The second is a slightly selfish observation, but something that I hope you find interesting as well. Just think back a moment to the list of courses that you saw on offer. They cover areas like cyber law and human rights and environmental law, and you will be spending a year studying these subjects, going through all the various courses within each of these programs. If you haven't been to law school, I'd like to share with you the fact that some of these courses aren't taught for more than 3 or 4 or perhaps a maximum of 6 months in the traditional law school curriculum. But you will be diving into them for about a year or so. This means that there is going to be intensive specialization. You will be going into the depths of each subject and understanding it from the inside out, as it were. And we're cognizant that if you have to do this, you need to understand 2 sets of things in particular. There is, of course, the broad theory, the broad field of law and what studying law means, what legal studies are all about, what are the ways of thinking that one needs to employ when engaging with these subjects, so that you can more meaningfully derive value from the more intensive specializations. The theoretical aspect is certainly one thing that we cover in this course. So you're equipped to go into each of these courses and as I said, derive more value from them. The second aspect is there is also the craft of studying law. There is also, for want of a better term, the artisanal aspect of working with legal materials. What does it mean to read a case or a judgment? What does it mean to read or draft a contract? How does one approach a book or a text or an essay that's been written by some famous jurist many hundreds of years ago, and how does one make sense of these things? We also try and work on the practical aspects of studying law in the Intro to Law course. So in terms of course structure, these are the two broad areas that we explore in this course. And hopefully you will find that having been through the Introduction to Law course, you won't find the lack of a formal legal education qualification to be a hurdle. That's the aim, that's the mission behind this course. And here's the second observation, which I said is perhaps a little selfish, but which I think, or I hope you will find interesting. I'm thinking back to around the time that I first went to law school. This was just a bit after Professor Nigam graduated. So our ships passed in the night, but we didn't meet. I think back and I recollect that I sat in that classroom and we studied law for 5 years. And I had, of course, the opportunity to learn from some of the best teachers around, but they were all lawyers. I had an amazing bunch of classmates, but they were all lawyers. And that's the only perspective we got. Those were the only debates that happened. Those were the only conversations that set the context for our study of the law. But in this past year, with the newly designed Intro to Law course, we've had doctors, we've had engineers, we've had computer scientists, we've had people who work on human rights, people who work with children, with refugees, who work on environmental issues, and the amazing range of perspectives that all of these people were able to bring to the course made for an experience that I don't think many people who have gone to law school and studied law have had the chance to experience. And that's the second enriching aspect of this course that I hope you will find interesting. You learn not just the theory of the law and how to work with the law, but you also learn what law means to people from various different backgrounds, to people with different professional qualifications and from various fields. That's about it. I'd be happy to take on any questions later about the course. Thank you. Back to you, Apurva.
Thanks, Bhavin. So we would take questions now. But before that, may I just invite Professor Nigam to briefly share his views on the offerings of the department. We've already received a few questions specifically directed, questions about courses, about, things that people want to know about their careers, etc. So we'll ask those first and then provide you with an opportunity to unmute and ask some of the questions. So Professor Nigam, over to you.
Thank you very much, Apurva, and thank you, Bhavin, for that excellent summary of an introduction to legal system. When you were cautioning our candidates about staying away from people who have written books 40 years ago, I almost thought you're talking about me for a moment. So no, don't worry, I'm not that old yet. I think it's incredible that we are taking at a juncture at the law school today, where we are able to embark on areas of law that were traditionally not taught in our undergraduate and even postgraduate law programs. And I think that's, for me, Apurva said, why don't you give an introduction? I'm going to give an unconventional introduction, so to speak. For me, my introduction to the programs that are being offered online and in a hybrid manner here is very different from what other people might think so. For me, it's an opportunity, if I were a candidate for these programs, it's an opportunity for me to kind of digress into areas that are traditionally not taught in the law schools in our country, but are incredibly important for not just for professional satisfaction, of course, but also for intellectual stimulation you receive when you are actively involved in looking at a very granular manner in discrete areas of law. As you can see from our offerings, we have courses across a wide variety of domains. We start with our flagship MBL course, but then we go into intellectual property, cyber crimes, medical law, environmental law, and such other areas, each of which requires special attention. And I think it is that diversity of offerings and looking at it in a very granular way into domains that are not taught otherwise in law schools, that is a specialty of what we are trying to offer here. So those are my introductory remarks, Apurva. But I don't know whether you would like to proceed by asking.
Yes, thank you so much for those remarks, sir. I would, some of the questions that we've already received, it would be helpful to get your thoughts on them. One of those is, of course, we have a lot of, and Bhavan has spoken briefly about this, but we would like to hear from you that a lot of students who take these courses are not trained in law. They are not lawyers, so to say. So how would these programs help them?
Well, I think the knowledge of law, especially commercial laws, are incredibly important for anyone who's interested in foraying into any area of commerce or business. Law enters at various phases. It enters at the birth of a business. You need to be either a sole practitioner or a partnership or a company, and all of those involves legal documents that in fact are just kind of a more complex version of simple contracts. So that's for the birth of a business. And then when you want to start developing your business, you need to have adequate knowledge of intellectual property laws, especially copyright and patents and trademarks. When you're trying to organize your business, you need to have some idea about labor laws and its effect, the effect of the business on the ecosystem. Therefore, you need to have some idea of environmental laws. When you're at the end of your business, you need to have some idea about banking law and insolvency laws. And in addition to that, there are other discrete areas of business. We have medical law and ethics, which talks about emerging areas of business, which are now flourishing in our country, especially healthcare law, for example. So we noticed that the law, and especially contract law and commercial law, and the other laws that I've mentioned, are involved in the life cycle of anyone, and not just lawyers, of anyone who's trying to make a living. And from that perspective, that I think these courses are important.
That's very useful. Thank you for sharing that. Based on your experience of working internationally in India, teaching, how do you think courses which are remote and hybrid in nature are useful for people, law courses specifically, like those we offer, for their career advancement?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about how my experience internationally in education is able to answer that question, I can do that. But
Sure.
But perhaps I'll widen your question a little bit. I'll talk about my that kind of background as well. But I also want to talk about the delivery of courses internationally and how they're delivered as well. So from both perspectives. So I think in terms of education, I think it's important that our students get some idea about being educated at a pace and in a manner that is somewhat autonomous. The traditional classroom teaching that we are used to cribs and confines students to a certain state in terms of geography and in terms of time. And I think the kind of education we're offering here in the distance education department actually kind of frees up the student to do a course at their pace and in the manner in which it's more convenient to them from home, fewer classroom sessions, more self-study sessions, and of course sessions over the computer as we are doing now. I think those are very important things. These have been pioneered abroad, and I've been the beneficiary of that. But it's also been it's also something that I think we are trying to do on a much larger scale here. So that's the kind of delivery background that I'm giving to how we are doing education. But I think another part of my my experience abroad is that when I went out of law school, I, for the first time, found an opportunity to specialize in subjects of my choosing and be taught by scholars who were well versed in that area, both in theory and practice. And that's again an aspect of the kind of courses we are trying to develop here and which are on offering here. Of course, MBL has, and these courses have a long history behind them. And it's important that students understand that that kind of study, which is transitioning from a generalized to a more specific pointed study, is of immense benefit to them in their development, in their intellectual development.
So thank you, Professor Nigam. Like you said, that our programs are designed to sort of, they are delivered at the intersection of theory and practice. The students are acquainted. We try and acquaint the students with both aspects of the specific subject. How important is this kind of an approach in the field today, where there is focus on theory as well as on practice?
Well, I think the issue is that law schools, at least in the undergrad programs, are unable to deal with the kind of depth required for certain areas of law, which are important later on in practice. And it is that depth of analysis and that attention to detail that is provided in the kind of courses we are offering. I don't think, I think Bhavin alluded to this earlier. I don't think just the kind of amount of time that's available for us in the traditional programs, we are not able to kind of detail the areas that we would like to teach to students that might be very important to them in their practice. So I don't think I would be able to detail the amount of time I need to spend on banking law and insurance and tax law to make a student well versed in these areas. And I think a course like MBL would provide an opportunity for students to do so. So I think it's from that perspective, I think it gives an opportunity for lawyers and non-lawyers alike to focus on areas that are relevant to their professional lives.
Thank you, Professor Nigam. I think we can take questions now, unless Bhavin, you have anything to add to those specific questions that I just asked Professor Nigam.
Not directly on those, but I said I would answer a couple of questions live. So I'll just pick those up now, if that's fine.
Sure. Please go ahead.
So question about if there would be an opportunity to visit campus. As Apurva mentioned, we are trying to organize 2 such opportunities over the duration of the year. You would appreciate, of course, that a lot of this is currently beyond the control of human hands and minds and within the realms of what the virus decides to do. But pandemic permitting, we will certainly try and organize 2 such visits, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see you then. There's a question about library access. Yes, there would be remote access that is provided, including to some legal research databases, such as the one that you've mentioned, Asir. There's a related question about borrowings, timings, etc. All of that. Bear in mind that this is all remote and online access. So you can borrow materials whenever you like, and there are no timing restrictions on that. That's that's about it. I think we can take more questions, Apurva.
Thanks, Bhavin. I just want to give an opportunity for 3 people who raised their hand. So Utkarsh, if you can unmute and ask your question, please go ahead.
Yes, good evening, ma'am. Actually, I have already registered myself in the NDL program, and I have gotten mail from your end, from NSIU, and it is being written there. and SIU is demanding for the separate fee for the campus visit weekend. So why it is so? It's being like we are so discriminated being the hybrid and online hybrid students, and it feels like very like why the and SIU is demanding for the campus separate fee for the campus visit weekends.
So Bhavin, I'll take that question. So Utkarsh, I don't know if you've read the communication clearly. We haven't decided on any fee as of now, but accommodation, as you know, we have large number of students and it may not be possible to accommodate all of them on campus. So you may have to spend a little bit on your accommodation. So that could be the gap in the understanding. I hope I've been able to address that.
Okay, thank you so much. It feels like we are discriminated. That's why
I can assure you that our attempt is to do the opposite. So if you feel in any other way you're being discriminated, please do write us an email and we will look into the matter. But on this aspect, I can say that was not the intention.
Okay, ma'am, my second question is that there's a program for cyber law and cyber forensic. So how could it be held for cyber forensic? Is there any practical or how could this program is going to be held for cyber forensic?
I mean, I can answer that, Apurva. Yeah. So I think the people who will be teaching you cyber crimes will also be teaching the cyber forensics as part of it. And so if you're asking about how the manner in which they teach it, we will leave it to the teachers, but they'll all be people who are well-versed in this area. So they should be able to.
If I can just add to that, we also get practitioners from the field to elaborate on certain topics which are, which are useful in your everyday interaction with cyber crimes or cyber forensics. So you get a mix of theoretical versus practical experiences.
So it is possible for in of online mode?
Yes, it is offered in the hybrid mode as well.
Yeah, I mean, you'll get the foundations of the course. Obviously, I think there will be aspects of cyber forensics that you'll have to actually do forensics to figure that out. I think that was his question. But the foundations will be done in this course.
Yes, exactly that questions, because cyber forensic is much related to from the IT sector. So it could not possible while the data and through the online mode. It must be possible while visit to the campus, and that's why I just asked.
That should not be a constraint in the manner in which it's going to be taught. So whether you come to the campus or whether it's online, the foundations of cyber forensics will be done. The people who teach these courses are quite used to that. Of course, those aspects of forensics that actually requires you to do something on site, that won't be done here, but that's not the purpose of the course.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Utkarsh. Dipanshu, you may ask your question.
Good evening to everyone in the panel. My question is about the particular course related to environmental law.
Okay.
So what actually I have done, I am a postgraduate in environmental studies. I have done MA in that course.
Okay.
From Delhi University. So the major portion or syllabus was related to these acts, policies, and other related laws. So I just want to ask if how much added advantage this course will provide me, as I have already done similar things.
So I can
Sure.
ask. So is it Dipanshu who asked this question?
Yes. Yes.
So Dipanshu, I'm not an expert in environmental law, but let me ask you: were you when you did your course, did you do a lot of work related to biodiversity law, that kind of thing?
So major portion was related to the from India and the laws, the acts, and the policies that the government have introduced, or the law that have been from the past in India. All these things, and some about international laws.
So this course is designed to be quite specific about the legislations in this area. So that's why I asked you the question about biodiversity. With the Biodiversity Act, the Water Pollution and Control Laws, the Air Prevention and Pollution Act. So it'll be legislation specific, which might be different from what you have studied. So there'll be a lot more legal component to the environmental law program here. And that might be quite different from what you've done in your course. It won't just be policy, in other words.
I have applied for this course in your university just because of pretending that it will surely give me an added advantage, but I have already done. And so I have other question as well. So as I have done MA in environmental studies, and if I pursue this course as well, so how much is the need that I will be required to do LLB at some point of time if I want to expand in my career regarding some job prospect? Because firms directly ask for LLB.
Right.
Yeah, if I
Well-
can just start answering that question, and Bhavin and Professor Nigam can step in. So to practice as a lawyer, you do need an LLB, and none of our distance education programs can facilitate that for you. That has to be an in-person regular program for it to be recognized as of now. So you can't practice as a lawyer, but there are various consulting opportunities depending on the organization that you are applying to, which may value the fact that you have had an education both in environmental science as well as in environmental law from a law university. Bhavin, if you want to add anything, or if not, we'll just take another question. Vinay Sridhar, please go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, ma'am. I had a question regarding the curriculum. The course doesn't mention jurisprudence, constitutional law, torts, criminal law, and land law. So I was just wondering if this will be taught in the fundamental or the introductory course, and if it is taught, would it really capture what is taught at the LLB level? Because these are covered over, I think, 2-3 years. Would we be
Vinay, which program are you referring to?
So I'm this thing, Masters in Business Law.
Okay.
So, Vinay, we won't be covering those areas in the Master of Business Laws, because we would assume that a student has come here because he or she is mainly interested in commercial law and commercial law related areas. Now, having said that, the legal domains have become so porous now that sometimes what is being taught in one area trespasses into another area. So, for example, we're talking about constitutional law. Anybody who talks about e-commerce will have to talk a little bit about consumer law and privacy and those kind of issues. So you're going to have, and some parts of administrative law, you're going to have issues from other domains being taught. But primarily speaking, the focus will be on commercial law in the MBL program.
I hope that answers your question. Himanshu, you can go next.
Yes. Hi. So this is a question which is more to explore potential career opportunities, and I'm quite keen on the subject for the MBL course, really. And with somebody with over 2 decades of marketing and brand management experience, I was just wondering what sort of career offshoots it may help with or lead to, either in terms of practice or consulting, or even academic as a pursuit. So just wanted you to throw some light on that possibility.
Yeah, I can answer that question. So I think one of the reasons why the MBL program was developed in the first place is to give an opportunity from other functionalities to kind of cross-fertilize their intellectual pursuits. It's interesting for, I think, a person who's involved in marketing and human resource management in other areas to study the laws that have an impact in those areas, right? So a lot of the MBL program has a module on industrial disputes that has an impact on human resource management. The MBL program has several modules on contracts that would have an impact on marketing and outreach. I think it's important for somebody in domains of the sort that you mentioned to have some appreciation of commercial laws in general. It will enhance the capabilities of that person, both professionally and intellectually, to do that. And so that, I think that part, the professional advancement part, I think is well understood and is something that is plain to see when you look at our offerings. But I'm very interested to see that you also mentioned academic. which is something that a lot of people do not think about, but actually is quite relevant even in these programs. Several people at different stages of their career want to do something academic about the professional stuff that I've already done for several years. So, for example, somebody who's in marketing and outreach may want to develop their expertise into areas that they traditionally wouldn't be doing, for example, trademarks and copyright. And the MBL program, or indeed the other offerings that we have, provide a bridge to doing some kind of academic work that you would otherwise not have time to do. I know several people who have even thought of applying to PhD programs whilst they are actually working professions for several years. And it helps them to, in order to develop their thesis proposal, in order to figure out what areas of study they want to kind of go further into, to do programs of this sort, which kind of gives them an interdisciplinary view into what their research would look like a few years from now. So both from a professional and academic point of view, what you just mentioned makes a lot of sense.
May I just add on a couple of points here, Himanshu? I'm a little excited because you say you're involved with marketing. I live in a city where I'm surrounded by people who work in the entertainment industry. And I've had the opportunity to advise some of these people in the past, as well as several people who work in marketing at many different organizations. Here's one example of how a better, deeper knowledge of the law might help. I don't know if you've heard this, Himanshu, but there is this urban legend in the film industry that it's okay to use about 20 to 30 seconds from somebody else's film, or from somebody else's video, or from somebody else's song in your own materials. Yeah. Whether that's actually legally permissible or not is something that perhaps with a deeper knowledge of intellectual property law, you might be able to answer and avoid potential liability later. I've also been asked several times by clients who want to promote their products whether it's okay to compare it with a competitor's product. And if so, am I allowed to name that competitor? Am I allowed to use their logo and their brand name and show them in a disparaging light or not? Once again, these are questions that a better knowledge of the law might help with. And may I just say, although only loosely connected to marketing, I think aside from this webinar, it's amazing to me that on the day that season 5 of Money Heist is being released, there are 63 people here. And some of you may have read the headline about a couple of hours ago that the entire season 5 has been leaked in HD online. Now, there's an interesting combination of some of the questions or some of the areas from which we've had questions so far. Is there an IP issue involved? Certainly there is. Is there a cyber law and cyber forensics issue involved? Certainly there is. Are there several areas of business that might be impacted by something like this? Certainly there are. And if you are able to bring to bear on these questions, both your professional experience in these fields, as well as your knowledge of the law relating to these fields, I think you've got a winning combination.
Thank you to both of you. I think I was already sold, but I think you nailed it. So thank you.
Can I, sorry, Purva, I know that that you're forging ahead, but I just thought I'll step back a little bit in time. I thought to say one thing to, I think it was Vinay who asked a question about what do we do about jurisprudence, and he was lamenting the fact that we are not teaching jurisprudence and public law and constitutional law. So I have to tell Vinay that don't worry, those are all areas, and I mentioned it in my answer, but I want to emphasize that here, based on my experience with students, that those are all areas that kind of come together in almost any subject in commercial law. I am right now, Vinay, I'm right now currently teaching a course for the postgraduate LLM students called Foundations of Private Law. And I make them do a lot of jurisprudence in my courses. When I teach them contracts, and I tell them that I ask them what is the heart of contract law? Is it expectation interest, or reliance interest, or restitution interest? And they are, and unlike Vinay, they have to be convinced that there's a jurisprudential basis to contract law. But these are all issues that are not peripheral to commercial law. They're actually integral and at the heart of how we are doing commercial law. And you will, Vinay, you will see a lot of that in the MBL program as well. You will see us looking at the foundations of commercial law and actually asking you to rethink what you might have thought are the basics of commercial law. So those are jurisprudential issues, and all those kind of issues will be something of interest for you.
Yeah, hi, good evening all. I have a few questions. I think a couple of my questions was asked by the previous gentleman, so I'll probably not touch upon that. The exam type, now, is this going to be written or is it going to be online? In view of the pandemic happening, we don't know whether it's going to be a third wave that's going to hit us. So how are we planning on the exam? That's
Right.
one thing to know. And the other question that I had is pertaining to the study materials. Is it all going to be online, soft copies, or will there be hardbound books also probably shared?
Right. So Naveen, I'll take those questions. In the pandemic itself, we have facilitated online examination for students to take from the comfort of their homes or wherever they have a stable internet connection. In the past, we had physical exams. Going forward, we intend to facilitate both for our students, whichever mode is comfortable. So online examination will continue. Regarding the material which is available online, part of it is also available offline if you find it easier to read, or you can also, access if you are okay with reading online. All the material is available on the LMS also. And occasionally, professors do give you supplementary material that is also made available online. Nishit, please go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, ma'am. Very good evening.
Good evening.
Ma'am, I have one question. Main question is that how these PG courses are going to help practicing advocates in earning more clients, and can NLSIU help them linking with the prospective clients?
Should I take that up?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's take the second one first. No, unfortunately, I don't think we can even remotely suggest that we can try and help you get more clients. That's not part of the offering. But let's take the first part. I'm already a lawyer. I've studied 3 years or 5 years. I know the law. I've been practicing for some number of years. Add up those years that you've practiced and the years that you studied, you're probably, I'm looking at the profile photo, maybe about 7 or 8 years away from when you first studied these subjects. You would appreciate that a lot may have changed. That's one. You would appreciate also that many of the subjects that we're covering in these specializations in the PG diplomas, you can go on and on studying them and never reach the end. For both of these reasons, I feel that at some point in the career, I wish it were necessary for all practicing lawyers to refresh their knowledge and their skills. And programs like this offer you the opportunity to do that. The second thing is I can go up to a potential client and I can say that, look, I've studied law, and so I can help you with pretty much any area. Or I can go up to them and say that, hey, I realize that your business relates to this area of the law. Not only am I a generalist in the law and I've studied it, but I've taken the trouble and effort to go through a specialization for a year or more and sharpen my knowledge and update my knowledge and skills. Would you rather have me than another lawyer representing you? It's an indirect answer, Nishit, but I hope that helps.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, please.
A very good evening, ma'am and sir. Sir, I have two questions. The first one is regarding the International Academic Exchange Program. So is there any International Academic Exchange Program with the foreign university students in regards to this diploma course?
Not at the moment. We do not have a collaboration with any university in India or abroad.
Thank you, ma'am. And second one is that regarding the dissertation, ma'am.
Yes,
Ma'am,
what is the question?
can we choose any topic which is related to our subject, like state-oriented issues apart from the topics of dissertation given by the university?
Right. So long term, the department is deliberating on the continuance of this vertical of dissertation, but if it were to continue, there is a list of topics that is suggested. If you want to work on any other topic, then you can just email us. Your program coordinator has to approve that topic. And if they approve it, you can work on that. That is not a problem.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Parth, you can ask your question.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Just give me 1 second. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for this. Yeah. So what I wanted to ask you guys was, are students enrolled in a certain program allowed to either tune into or offline access other classes from other courses, just in case we find them interesting?
Not unless you are enrolled in them. We do provide an opportunity for you to simultaneously enroll in more than one program within the department, if that is of interest to you. And I don't know which program you're referring to, but all MBL students get access to Bhavan's class on Introduction to Law and Legal Systems, even if they don't write an exam for it. So that is the extent of class attendance that you can have beyond what is available for your program.
Oh, all right. But
you
but
will
like,
have access. I do want to mention, and something maybe I missed in my presentation, we will give access to distance education students to the public lectures that NLS organizes. And these are routinely organized. So if there is a lecture that is of interest, you can attend that.
okay,
Bhavan,
but I would have, sorry.
Bhavan wanted to add something.
No, just the same point, Parth. I don't know that you will have access to classes in any of these other programs, but what might be fun is to attend one of the Intro to Law classes, because we have people from all the programs, and although it is voluntary for the MBL students, we do have a fair number of people showing up there as well.
Yeah, I just happened to be a radio producer, and I signed up for a law course because I always wanted to. And so I just picked what sounded like the most fun to me. Medical law and ethics has got nothing to do remotely with anything that I do professionally. So it's just, this was just like my landing, or like my interaction or conversation with law in general, like in my life. So so that's why I asked it, but it's cool. I'll figure out a way to.
What course are you signed up for, Parth? Or what course are you thinking of?
Oh no, I am signed up for already. I am signed up for medical law and ethics. I actually once listened to a Radio Lab episode, which is quite fascinating. So that inspired me to like explore medical law a little more. Was always fascinated about how like you institutionalize ethics and things like that. So so I went in for that course. I was just I just wanted to check if I could still drop in for some classes of IPR law or some class of business law and so on. But it's cool if that's not the policy.
Vijay, please ask your question.
Vijay's background is predominantly in information security for his company, taking care of risk management and leadership. He has about 15 years of experience. As a part of his job, he also reviews customer contracts with relation to security, what the company can and can't accept. He is inclined to understand more about privacy controls and the law. He is keen to maintain a good balance of understanding relating to security, privacy, the laws that govern that, which might help him in his career. Would the course on cyber law and forensics help Vijay? Before I pass this on, Vijay, this is the second time this has happened in one of these webinars, and I love these opportunities. Love meeting people like you and with the sort of background you have. Perhaps you might find this interesting. We spend about 2 to 3 hours in the Intro to Law course looking at how one might use the methods of Boolean logic and Boolean algebra to better understand legal rules, and how contract assembly works, and how we might think of entities and actions in a contract as variables of different sorts, and what sort of loops control them. Having said that, I'm going to pass this on to Nigam or Apurva, whoever would like to answer.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have not much to add to what you said, Bhavin. I think the course on cybersecurity and cyber forensics will be helpful because there'll be lots of questions from a legal point of view that he may not have thought about earlier. I mean, data privacy itself is an area, the data protection bill itself is an area of much controversy that I think somebody analyzing it from a legal point of view would greatly benefit from those kind of ideas. And a person like this who's actually worked in information and in risk management would bring a certain perspective to that course and to understand what's happening in that course. That'll be immensely beneficial both for the instructor and the student. So I think those kind of courses would be useful.
Himani, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, am I audible?
Sure.
Hi. So it's just a follow up on the thing that you just said. So the main motivator for me to apply to this course was the dissertation bit. Like I'm planning to move to North America and do JD and pivot my career to that. I'm a practicing psychologist and I have already signed up for human rights law, and that's the area it interests me. And dissertation was a very a strong component that I felt, which actually motivated me to even apply for that. In case you plan to discontinue with this, will there be an option to do this bit or not? I mean, that was a little disheartening for me to listen that you are deciding on this bit. Yeah.
So Himani, first, thank you for your interest. We haven't taken a decision yet. As
Okay.
and when it is taken, it is going to be communicated to all the students. However, there is nobody stopping you from writing that dissertation if you want to.
There's always an external push, this was like my external push to show the committee that this is, I've actually done some research work in this area. But I mean, I don't know, it was a little disheartening to hear that.
I'm sorry about that, but we have to keep in mind the overall structure of the program.
Yeah.
If you do want to discuss any areas of research or specific questions
Sure.
about the area, you can definitely reach out to the relevant faculty during their office hours and discuss that. So that kind of guidance, broad-based, may still be available.
Okay, wonderful. And thank you for organizing this webinar. It's wonderfully organized. Thank you.
Thank you. One is about placements. A lot of you have asked us whether we are able to facilitate placements or jobs. Unfortunately, we are not able to do that at the moment, but I encourage you to take advantage of our alumni committee, alumni community, and the portal that is available online. You can definitely network and seek guidance and see what other people are doing. I think that can aid you in just expanding your horizon of knowing about opportunities. Then there's another question about examination. And I'd just like to repeat that the option for those of you who are not in India and want to pursue this course from outside of the country, an option to appear for examinations online is available. And in due course, those details are shared with all the enrolled students. There are minor conditions to that, which is that you need to have a stable network, so on and so forth. So all of those system requirements, etc., are also shared in advance so that you are adequately prepared to appear for the examination. There is one question about remote access and library books and whether you can visit the library in person. The answer is yes, obviously pandemic permitting, and we have protocols in place for those of you who want to visit from the outside. But within the working hours of the library, you are welcome. You will be permitted if you follow all the protocols and show your ID card that we will issue at the time of admission. And remote access is enabled if you are already enrolled for the program. There are specific directives on how to access books and journals and other things through the library that we will share with you.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
When will be the classes usually? What day? Any idea? How
Yes,
many days in a month?
Yes, you can. We have classes 2 weekends in a month. These are usually from between 9 to 6 o'clock. Each class is for 2 hours, and they happen routinely every alternate weekend. Unless there is a public holiday or a festival there, then there might be a slight change in the schedule.
Any minimum attendance requirement?
There is no minimum attendance required. Yeah, I do want to take up some questions in chat. Are the classes interactive? Yes, most of the classes, and the Professor Patel's class leads the way, are interactive classes with an opportunity for students to participate. Also on the LMS, you have an option to interact with your peers and just engage with the material in a more interactive fashion. The human rights course specifically, Iqbal, covers a lot of international conventions and speaks about conflicts across the world. So I do think it can benefit you. We are unable to facilitate any placements as of now. We encourage you to take advantage of our alumni portal, alumni network, and benefit from opportunities that people may share. Okay, so we will really have to wrap up, everyone. I'm just going to take just one last question that we have from Santosh here about how does LLM and MBL is different from LLM. So MBL was a flagship program, not just at NLS, but in the industry when it began. And it has a lot of retrospective and otherwise long-term value. So a lot of our graduates have actually come and told us that people often recognize the MBL program by its name and recognize the kind of expertise, the depth and breadth that it acquaints all the students with. So I really don't want to speak about other universities or other programs, but I encourage you to do a comparison in that fashion. If other programs have that kind of market and brand value, and also the kind of syllabi that they are covering, and the peer group that they may be introducing you to, I think if one has to make a cumulative assessment of all of these things, our program is quite unique in that regard. So with that, I will really close now. If, like I said, any questions are left, you can write to us. I'm just going to type the email address in chat. It's ded@nls.ac.in. I'm going to just share my screen so that you can note down the contact details as well if you are unable to hear me properly. So you can go to our website. This is online.nls.ac.in, and you go to contact us. You have all the information available here. We have a helpline number. We are available from 10 p.m. to 6 p.m. to answer at these numbers. And you can also email us at this address. So if you still have any doubts, you can write to us we'll just share the email address in the chat, and you can just reach out with your questions. But I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Professor Nigam for staying up late and interacting with all of you for this webinar. Harvin, for interacting with the students, my colleague Lingraj, who's been helping me with logistics, and definitely all of you for making the time on a Friday evening to know more about our courses. We hope to meet most of you, if not all of you, in our classes and in our programs. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Good night. Bye-bye.